Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, yeah, and I hadn't seen it before yesterday.
Oh, really?
I went to the press screening at noon and realized that I'd been talking about the movie with some other press all morning, and I kept referring to a scene that was cut from the movie. So, so I'm glad I finally saw it. And then I saw it again last night with the wider audience, and the reception. I mean, the reception at the press screening
was impressive. Yes.
Yeah, and then last night it was through the roof. It was it really lands with people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, please tell me, who is Terrence?
He's a bastard.
Yes.
Yeah.
How does it feel to play the biggest bastard, but the charismatic bastard?
Well, that's the fun, you know, and it's you know, people, especially in France, people make a lot of comparisons to Oz, which is very big here, and definitely valid comparisons, although Fletcher doesn't kill anybody. But he's the thing that's important to me in the writing and the playing of a character like this, who's just a obsessive, abusive, asshole, bastard, evil human being, is that there's got to be a motivation. It's got to come from somewhere, and I found again, watching the film and listening to to myself, to Fletcher expound on his sort of philosophy in the scene in the jazz club where he's telling Andrew about, you know, the world is too ready to settle for mediocrity, and it's my job to drive people beyond their own expectations, and you know, that's a philosophy that I largely agree with, you know, and I think many people do. The methods he uses, maybe not so much, but it's, you know, it's easy to play a character like that if it's well written, and if there's a point of view, if you can see that it comes from somewhere.
First of all, thank you very much. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. It's been a fun ride.
It's your first time here in Cannes?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's awesome.
Sundance or Cannes, what is the difference for you so far?
It's funny because I didn't do any festivals in between, and it's kind of like the polar opposites in a way. It's, you know, Sundance is cold and snowy and small American independent films, and Cannes is the Riviera and sunny and feels much, you know, it feels amplified in a way. But I think Sundance was the perfect place to sort of launch the movie first, but my dream was to from Sundance to take it to Cannes, and I'm just over the moon that I got to do that.
Do you play any instrument at all?
Drums, yeah. I mean, I don't play that much anymore, but I used to play a lot of jazz drums, and I had a teacher somewhat like the teacher in the movie, and was in a competitive jazz ensemble and lived that life. So it was sort of the most autobiographical thing I've ever sort of written or done.
How old are you?
29.
Wow, you're so young.
Oh.
When did it become for you the idea to make this film? The first idea, which was because of your teacher, because of your challenge? What is?
It was. I mean, it was. Did you want me to hold this? Or? Okay, I didn't want.
Let's put it over here and then let's make the interview.
For me, it was. You know, I was in the middle of writing something else actually, and it just wasn't really going that well. I was having trouble figuring out something, and I sort of put aside the project, and it was in a moment of frustration and sort of not really knowing what to do. This would have been like early 2011 that I wrote the first draft of this, and so I think there's a lot of kind of anger in the script for that reason, and it had something to do with sort of where I was also, and I was also thinking back on memories that I still have today that are very, very strong and emotional for me of when I was playing music, and both the passion for the music that I felt, but also the pain that it involved, and
why the pain? Why your pain? What happened
well.
to you?
Well, it was, you know, on the one hand, it's the physical pain, which I don't think we see in movies enough about music. I think it's, you know, as a drummer, my hands bled. I was constantly dealing with blisters and stinging pain in my hands. My arms would throb, sweat, you know, blood, sweat, and tears. The whole kind of, it was that whole thing. It's the full kind of lifestyle, and but also emotional pain, the sort of humiliation of fucking up a drum pattern in front of the band, the humiliation of disappointing my conductor, who I sort of looked up to like a god, and who scared the shit out of me, and scared the shit out of everyone in the band. It was just the intensity of that world. It was heady, and you know, it was just one of those times that really marks you, especially, you know, I was a teenager. It's just it really kind of, looking back, I think left a real sort of imprint on me that hasn't gone away.
You remind me, well, film, Jim Krupa, from Jim Krupa. Do you saw the biography from Jim Krupa?
Yeah.
It's a very good film, and I don't know, maybe if you take something about that film for inspiring, for example.
So are you talking about the Gene Krupa story from the, like the 30s or it's the 40s? Yeah, not the 30s, 40s.
More like 60s, 50s, 60s.
Yeah, it's the 50s actually, because he still was around in the. Yeah, you're totally right. 30s. That's when he was like just starting. I think that it's funny because there's so few movies about drumming, and there's Drumline, there's That Thing You Do, a few other films. I mean, it's a funny kind of perspective on the rest of the band in a way, because you're a little bit dependent on the rest of the band, but the band is also dependent on you. So you're kind of you sort of have to be constantly carrying the burden of the band, and I think it's for that reason also that, you know, conductors are notorious for picking on drummers, and my conductor was no exception. And the jokes about drummers versus musicians is you know, are part of jazz culture, music culture, but I think it was also something about drumming was just it was the physicality of drumming, and for me, even more than Gene Krupa, it was Art Blakey, it was Buddy Rich, it was people who seemed pissed off when they were playing. That was like, it was interesting to me. It seemed that really they were beating their drums with ferocity, like they were like the drum heads were people they wanted to fucking kill, and they were killing them. It's like there's that kind of element of it. I wanted to try to capture a little bit of that ferocity in the playing.
It was difficult for you to choose an actor to play the drums, or also play the drums. What is more difficult, acting like you are playing the drums, or find an actor who really plays?
I mean, for me, I sort of made the decision that in my head that I wasn't going to care about the drums first. I was just going to find the best actor, and that I would teach him how to play drums. And what wound up being really lucky, and sort of I think made the whole thing possible, was that Miles Teller, who plays the role in the film, actually did play the drums and have some drumming experience. That said, he didn't know how to play jazz drums at all. He never had a formal lesson. He didn't know how to hold the sticks properly. He played some rock drums with friends and stuff. So it's yes, yeah, and so exactly. So he still had to. We weren't starting from square one, but he still really had to go through a crash course to get up to speed, and he just threw himself into it. I mean, he just practiced like a maniac, and by the end of the shoot, his own hands were bleeding. I mean, it was he really lived the part. And what was great is we shot almost, not entirely, but tried to shoot somewhat consecutively, so that as the character is getting better, he gets better at the drums, and as the character is getting crazier and more sleep deprived, Miles was getting more sleep deprived. So, and we all were. So it mirrored the movie.
This is your first film. What is the most difficult part for you in the film process? Screenwriting, shooting, editing, selling, distribution, what?
I think the most difficult is still probably the shoot, especially with a movie like this. We only had 20 days to shoot it, and that's the part where, because that's the part where if you make one little mistake, the whole thing can collapse. It's like a house of cards that you're just sort of building. At least in the writing and in the editing, you have a little more flexibility to adapt. But at the same time, the shooting is the most exhilarating part. So it's always the part I dread the most, and yet the part where I probably get the most, you know, pure joy. That said, I do love editing, and I think ultimately editing is really where to me I get to just kind of be a kid again, and just I worked with a brilliant editor on this film, Tom Cross, and the two of us just got to sit in a dark room for weeks and just play with images, which to me is the idea of, you know, that's I wouldn't want to do anything else.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congratulations for
Thank
the film.
you so
Really,
much.
I'm playing the drums also.
Oh, you do?
Yes, well, but not jazz.
Right.
Also rock and roll, and it's very impressive.
I don't play that much anymore, but I
Don't lose it.
I used to.
I have an accident right here. So that's what.
Oh my god.
A glass
Wow. So you do you,
in a fight.
does it ruin your flexibility then for when you're playing? Can you still play at all, or?
Well, no, it's, for example, it's less faster. For example.
Yeah.
And it was so tough.
I remember my before playing a big concert in the jazz band. The night before I got into a huge car accident where my car flipped, and I got these sort of big scars in my hand, and I had to play I mean, you see, it's a version of the scene in the movie, but I had to play the concert with even though it was the day after, the bandages had broken off, so my hands were bleeding. There's still glass in the hands, and I couldn't really move it that well, and was playing the big kind of end of the year concert for the band, sort of thinking like, well, this is sort of what it's about.